Notice from Galandius. Let's begin. There isn't much documented information about Saint Leo, the Bishop of Senators. We do have a letter from Saint Remigius, the Bishop of Reims, addressed to 3 bishops, Heraclius, Leo, and Theodosius. In this letter, he expresses his frustration about a presbyter named Claudius and feeling ignored by them in this matter. Following the work of Sermond and Coinches, this letter has been arranged to be printed elsewhere. Among these 3 bishops, Coinches is confident that 2 served in the 4th province of Lugdunensis, Heraclius in Paris, and Theodosius in Auxerre, as they were part of the First Council of Orleans, convened in 511 AD. Thus, it seems likely that the 3rd bishop was our Leo of Sens, the metropolitan of the same province. Remigius wrote this letter after the death of King Clovis, whom he described as both a preacher and a defender of the Catholic faith. Clovis died at the end of 511. Shortly after the First Council of Orleans concluded, as recorded by Hadrianus Valesius and Coinches. Therefore, it's most likely that Remigius's letter was written in 512, not 510, as Papi Brachhius suggests. Continuing on, we learn that Leo had already held the seat of Sens by at least 512. Regarding his notable actions as a bishop, it's recorded that the people of Melun, who weren't fully converted, were brought to Christ by Saint Aspasius, the Bishop of Alusa. This information is found in the Breviary of Sens on April 22, from which the esteemed Coinches transcribed them. Additionally, through the presbyter Orbat, Leo participated in the Second Council of Orleans, confirmed by the subscription of Honoratus, the Metropolitan Bishop of Bourges, as being held in the 22nd year of Lord Childebert's reign, which is the year 533 AD, as noted by Valesius, Coinches, Pagius, and the authors of the literary history of Gaul. In this situation, there are 2 errors found in Papi Brachhius' work. First, Orbati is mistakenly named instead of Optatus. Second, the council is incorrectly dated to the year 531 AD. Since Clovis passed away in 511 AD, as we noted earlier, the 22nd year of his successor, Childebert, brings us to 533 AD. Leo, who was represented at the Second Synod of Orleans, attended the 3rd one personally. This was held on May 5, in the 27th year of King Childebert's reign, according to the signature of Lupus, the Metropolitan Bishop of the Church of Lyon in the First Province, which corresponds to the year 538 AD, as stated by the authors recently mentioned, Valesius, Coinches, and Pagius. Once again, Papi Brachhius should be corrected, as he mistakenly dates this synod to 536 AD. However, the Holy Bishop did not attend the 4th Synod of Orleans, held 3 years after the 3rd. This is evident from its 27th canon, which states, if anyone after the Synod of Orleans held 3 years before this, etc. Therefore, this council took place in the 30th year of King Childebert, which is 541 AD. Coinches discusses this in more detail, and also explains why our Bishop of Sens was absent from this council, namely, a dispute between him and King Childebert, as he strongly defended the rights of his church. This is clearly revealed in his letter to the same king, which we have published. From it, we learn that the metropolitan city of Sens was under the rule of King Childebert. However, the town of Melun, which belonged to the same metropolitan seat, was not under Childebert but instead obeyed his uncle Childebert. Therefore, when Childebert attempted to establish an episcopal seat at Melun, Leo, the metropolitan of Sens, resisted. As that town still belonged to the Diocese of Senators for this reason, King Childebert, having found Leo to be a staunch defender of his rights, did not allow the bishop or his representative to visit Melun. Leo wrote a letter asking the king not to appoint a new bishop in Melun, a place within his diocese's parish where there had never been a bishop before. The exact year the letter was written isn't clearly known, but since Leo mentions he is old and weak, it's likely he didn't live long after the year 541. Leo's successor, Constantius from the 4th province of Lyon, was present at the Council of Orleans. As noted by the bishop of the 1st province of Lyon, this council took place on October 28, in the 38th year of King Childebert's reign, which is 549 AD. Adrianus Valerius also supports this date. Therefore, Papi Brach's suggestion that the council occurred in 547 is not accepted. Saint Leo of Sens is commemorated in the Roman Martyrology on April 22. According to the breviary from the Church of Sens, often referenced by Coint, It states that upon fulfilling his episcopal duties worthily and receiving eternal rewards, he was buried in the church of Saints Gervasius and Protasius in Senators. At his invocation, many healings and miracles were performed for the sick. As a result, this church became a parish title and was thereafter named after Saint Leo. Letter of Saint Leo to Childebert, King of the Franks, 500s.
To the most illustrious Lord and Son in Christ, King Childebert, Bishop Leo, I want to inform you that I received your letter with the respect it deserves, where you express your hope that my presence or agreement would be necessary in appointing the Bishop of Mecklendensis. Your Majesty should know that I find this quite surprising, especially because you are requesting this without the directive of our most glorious Lord, your son, King Childebert, under whose kingdom we follow orders. You are suggesting that something not done in the past should now begin with either my presence or agreement. We would never have imagined or believed that you would wish for such an affront to either our order or your era, to allow our diocese, entrusted to us by God and maintained until now under pontifical order by His grace, to pass into another's authority, or that responsibility be transferred due to unreasonable considerations. Therefore, greeting you with the due and proper affection of love in God, we ask and solemnly urge you not to permit any bishops to act against the decrees of the Fathers, for which they might be condemned by synodal examination for unauthorized presumption. However, those actions that should occur in your time should be inspired by God, where peace can exist among priests, and the people should not be allowed to be torn from the care of their rightful pastor by a new and unauthorized ordination. I ask you to uphold the decrees of the Fathers, bound by the strictness of the canons, and not to allow, as you write, the ordination of another bishop at the request of those people while their own priest is still alive, because if they request this, which is unthinkable, they should be judged as deserters rather than faithful, and their requests should not be readily entertained by the prince, whose petitions create scandals rather than maintain the peace loved by God. For just as blessed are the feet of those who bring peace, so woe is declared to those through whom scandal comes. If they're asking for another bishop because we can't send a visitor or come ourselves due to blocked paths, that's not our fault. If the path on your side hadn't been blocked for so long, as you know very well, we could have visited the people entrusted to us by church discipline, even though we're old or sick, or at least sent a visitor, as the canons require. You should understand and know that if any bishop wants to ordain a bishop in Mechleden without our consent, against the canon statutes, both those who ordain and the one who is ordained will be excluded from our communion. This exclusion will remain until it reaches the knowledge of the Pope or a synodal hearing.